Bill, and ready to pin Bill's video and share us a story from New Zealand. I think it's going to be.
Randy walked into the rundown house, greeted the occupants, looked around quickly, thanked them, and walked out. He came over to Brent and me and said, "That's just not going to work. It's not a good location for us. We can't shoot here." "What's wrong?" "It's just too seedy. I wanted it to be like Grandma's house." We had a problem. Gerald and the lighting crew had already arrived, and the Foots were due to arrive any minute. Randy and I were part of a small American crew making a film with New Zealand Telecom, the phone company, to promote their new 0800 emergency rescue roadside rescue number. The telecom people had chosen a couple named Mr. and Mrs. Foot, a kindly old couple, and the Foots lived several hours outside of Wellington, which was our home base while we were filming in New Zealand. So Brent, our local fixer, our production manager, our local producer, our man on the ground, Brent suggested, why don't we rent a house or a space partway between here and where they live? Then we can split the driving. Randy, our director, said, well, this could work. We could do that as long as we don't mind living a lie. We didn't. We lived a lie quite a bit of the time. We often filmed on rented or borrowed locations. So Brent dispatched an assistant to this town an hour or two north of Wellington, and she had found what she thought was a suitable house, and we had shown up ready to shoot. The Foots were arriving soon. I keep wanting to call them the Feet, but it's the Foots. And our crew was there. And now Randy had nixed the house, so what were we going to do? Brent looked at Randy and said, tell me again just what kind of house you want. Well, it should be something sweet and welcoming, like a grandma's house. That place was like something out of Tobacco Road. We just couldn't shoot there. Randy, get in the car and let's drive around. You can't just drive around and knock on a door and walk in and start filming. Randy, get in the car. So Randy and I got in the car with Brent and we drove around the neighborhood, and after about 10 minutes, with prodding from Brent, Randy dubiously selected a classy red brick ranch house. It had a big palm tree out front and a for sale sign. Brent knocked on the door and a lady named Mrs. O'Brien answered. It turned out she really was a grandmother. And when Brent explained our predicament, she told us that she would be happy to help, especially when she heard that Americans were involved, and that we would only need to use her dining room for 3 or 4 hours. Of course, we offered to pay her, but she refused, and she baked cookies for us as we set up. Randy was amazed that people were so helpful, but Brent was not surprised. We encountered Kiwi's penchant to be helpful a couple of days before. We'd shown up early at the central station, the central train station in Wellington, hoping to get some shots of commuters arriving and bustle of the big city and trains coming in. And we set up our camera on our tripod, and we were just a minute or two too late to get the train arriving. We were trying to figure out what to do next. A tall, mustachioed man approached us. Here now, what's this? Brent said, good morning, sir. It's nice to see you. These are my clients from the United States, and they're here to make a film with New Zealand Telecom. Oh, really now, he said, looking us up and down, and I fervently hoped that I didn't have any holes in my jeans. Yes, sir, said Brent. We were just wondering, can you tell us on what track will the 903 arrive, please? Well, said the mustache thoughtfully. What track would you like it to arrive on? We looked at each other. Track 12, please, sir. Then I can pan the camera over right from where it is, get the commuters in the foreground, the train coming in behind them, and the beautiful skyline of Wellington in the background. Done. Accommodating folks, these Kiwis. We had to film a telecom employee named Faye, whose job it was to appear on camera and explain how the new 0800 emergency rescue number worked. Faye turned out to be an Olympic archer, and Randy thought it would be cool if we got some shots of Faye shooting some arrows, pew, 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 into her practice target, which was a big heavy, bulky, compressed straw affair called a butt. Because there were no obvious locations in downtown Wellington for archery, we opted to schlep Faye's big butt up 2 flights of stairs to the empty office where we were shooting her interview. I set up the camera right next to the bullseye, looking back at the archer. And I rolled the camera and then ducked out of the way quickly, and Faye went 3 arrows, perfectly centered in the bullseye. You know, she said, splitting arrows isn't really that difficult, but it is costly because you destroy the arrows. Now, we were really enjoying Wellington. It reminded us a lot of San Francisco, a beautiful, windy, hilly city on a gorgeous bay, which was the Cook Strait between the North and South Islands of New Zealand. But when our Kiwi crew members opened their mouths, it reminded us for sure we weren't in California anymore. The first night we were there, Brent took us to dinner at a restaurant called Shed 5, S-H-E-D. But he pronounced it sheed, to rhyme with steed or breed, not shred or bread. The next night, we were filming a beautiful blood-red sun approaching tangency with a deep blue ocean, and Brent looked at it and said, "That's a bit chocolate boxy, isn't it?" Later he explained that meant that it was beautiful, but in a very perfect or cliched way. Then there was the time I said to Brent, "I'll meet you on the street in a minute as soon as I grab my fanny pack." And the Kiwis in our crew all laughed and guffawed and snickered. And what had I said? Brent couldn't suppress a giggle. He said, "Here in NZ, New Zealand, here in NZ, fanny refers to women's genitalia, not a derriere." Or a butt, apparently. We spent most of our time in Wellington, but we did get out of town from time to time. We filmed sheep everywhere, sheep at the side of the road, sheep in fields, close-ups of sheep, long shots of sheep posing against beautiful snow-capped mountains. This verdant island nation was half pasture land, and at the time we were there, had 4 million people and 40 million sheep. Back at Mrs. O'Brien's, we really were living a lie. We set up the shot of Mr. and Mrs. Foote for their interview, and in the background we put Mrs. O'Brien's teapots and Mrs. O'Brien's knickknacks, and photographs of Mrs. O'Brien's children and her grandchildren. The interview proved a little more difficult than we had anticipated because the Footes spoke very quietly, and they tended to answer questions like no or yes, which was not at all the kind of full sentence, full gusto explanations that we were looking for. So it was a bit difficult for Randy. Gerald, our lighting gaffer, set up 2 lights outside the window, streaming through, creating a kind of bogus sunlight. And it was fake, but it looked like a beautiful glow of sun from the window. I called out to him, "Gerald, the lighting looks great, it's beautiful." And he called back, "Oh, getting a bit of a stiffy, are you?" I wasn't. We continued the interview, and then the lights began to shake. And I called out, "Gerald, steady on the lights, please." And he called back, "Righty-o." And everything steadied up, and then a minute later, the lights started to shake again. I said, "Steady up, lads, the lights are moving." And Gerald called back, "I'm having some difficulty with the wind and the rain." And I was puzzled because I thought it was a nice day. And I couldn't see out the window because we had lights and other stuff in the window. And as I decided to go out to the side yard where the lighting crew was, and I was confronted by the most amazing scene because it was sunny, windy, and rainy, all at the same time. It was springtime south of the equator, and the sun had climbed high in the beautiful blue October sky. But at the same moment, rain was blowing sideways past the house from a storm miles away above the ocean. Sunny, windy, and rainy. Just then, the cops showed up. The constable banged on the door. "Mrs. O'Brien, your neighbors reported seeing some lads loading a van in front of your house. We want to make sure they aren't burglars." Of course, it was our lighting crew. Mrs. O'Brien, who at that point had known us for about an hour or two, assured the constables of our good intentions and that we had no intention of robbing her. Little did she know, she baked us cookies. Nevertheless, we were honest. Eventually, we finished the scene, and I said to Brent as we were loading out, "You know, that really worked out well, Brent. Thank you. It was beautiful." He said, "Oh, it was a box of fluffy ducks, wasn't it?" Now, I knew those to be English words, but I certainly had never heard them in that combination. I decided it was either a foreign language or some nefarious code. But Brent explained later that fluffy ducks meant that something was good and had gone really well, because after all, what could be better than a box of fluffy ducks? We broke for lunch and then began to plan our recreation of the actual roadside rescue. And it was there we discovered the story of the rescue was bogus. The Foots had indeed broken down on the side of the road, and they had been rescued by the Auto Club, but they hadn't called the new 0800 emergency rescue number. It wasn't set up yet. They had called the Auto Club office directly and gotten help that way. Our clients were kind of thrown for a loop, but they argued among themselves and eventually came up with the idea that, well, because the number had just been set up 2 days before our shoot, and Mr. and Mrs. Foot had been selected to be in the film weeks before, and they said, well, if the number had been set up on time, they certainly would have or could have used it, or probably should have used it. And the rest of the clients all nodded sagely, as if this feeble rationalization was some kind of sound reasoning. Nevertheless, we finished lunch and we went out to shoot the recreation. So after shooting Mr. and Mrs. Foot in someone else's house, in front of someone else's knickknacks and someone else's teapots and someone else's grandchildren and children, we filmed them being rescued by a wrecker they'd never seen, with a driver they'd never met, on a road they'd never traveled, to promote an emergency rescue number they had never used. Then we drove back to Wellington. Mission accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Let's stare off for a few seconds and reflect on living alive.